Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an intelligence briefing that honestly reads more like science fiction than fact. But it's very real. And it's telling us that the next great global conflict, well, it won't be fought over oil. It's going to be fought over water.
So to really get what this new kind of war is all about, you've got to picture this completely bizarre matchup. In one corner, you have the M1A2 Abrams tank. We're talking 68 tons of the most advanced armor and firepower on Earth. And in the other corner, just mud. Simple, liquefying pampas mud.
You can probably guess. And the winner of that strange fight tells you absolutely everything you need to know about this new era of warfare. This is a conflict where your most advanced, most expensive weapons can be completely neutralized by the very thing you're trying to control, the water that's hiding just under the surface.
Okay, so how in the world did some of the most powerful tanks on the planet end up literally swallowed by mud? Well, it's because they weren't there fighting for land or territory. They were fighting for what some are calling the most valuable resource on Earth, blue gold.
And this is the prize, the Guarani Aquifer. Now, don't just think of it as a big underground lake. It's more like a vast subterranean ocean of pure fresh water, and it sprawls beneath 4 different South American countries. It is so valuable, so critical, that a global superpower has just launched a full-scale military operation to seize control of it.
And this is where things went from policy to physical reality with, just shocking speed. One minute, Washington passes something called the Freshwater Security Act, and what feels like the next minute, it's not a piece of paper anymore, it's a lightning strike military operation on the ground, systematically occupying all the key access points to the aquifer inside Uruguay.
But here's the thing. This isn't just a simple military occupation. No, it's a massive industrial-scale engineering project. The whole point is to suck the water out of the ground as fast as possible and then ship it thousands of miles away. And the plan itself is just incredibly audacious. First, they build these huge fortified hydro hubs that pump water nonstop, 24/7. Then, they create what they're calling a ULC bridge, basically a non-stop fleet of supertankers sailing back and forth to the U.S. And finally, there's the salt doctrine, this highly controversial process that purifies the water but leaves behind a toxic legacy, just poisoning the local land with hypersaline brine.
And just look at the sheer scale of this thing. We are talking about millions of liters of fresh water being pulled from the ground every single hour. They're not just tapping a resource here, they are strip mining it.
But, as you might expect, this high-tech brute force invasion has run headfirst into a surprisingly effective and very clever resistance. And it's a resistance being fought on 2 totally different fronts, with sniper rifles out in the countryside and with lines of code back in the city.
And the opposition is this really fascinating mix. On one hand, you've got the gaucho ghosts, these rural fighters using classic gritty guerrilla tactics. And on the other, you've got the digital Sharua, a hacker collective that's figuring out how to turn America's own advanced technology against itself.
And this was their masterpiece. They called it Operation Dry Well. No bombs, no missiles, no firefight. They just hacked into the pipeline's industrial controls and inverted the pressure sensor readings. So the system thought the pressure was dangerously low, when in reality, it was critically high. The automated system then did all the dirty work for them, surging the pumps and basically tearing itself apart, shattering miles of pipeline.
Which brings us right back to where we started. The flood created by that one single cyber attack, it turned a major U.S. logistics hub into a swamp. The result? An entire platoon of M1A2 Abrams tanks, the best in the world, defeated by mud. They just had to be abandoned.
But this isn't just a local fight between hackers and soldiers anymore. Oh no. The resistance has drawn in some very big regional powers, and this whole thing is rapidly escalating into a full-blown international crisis.
And right here is where it gets really, really complicated. Brazil, seeing a direct threat to its own water security, mobilizes its own advanced tanks to the border. But, and this is brilliant, they embed Chinese scientists with their troops, creating this kind of political shield that the U.S. can't risk hitting. Meanwhile, Argentina starts funneling modern weapons to so-called volunteer battalions to go join the fight.
So now, this powder keg has an air-to-air fuse. We're talking Brazilian and U.S. fighter jets in regular, aggressive encounters right over the border. They're engaging in lock-on maneuvers, which, is the very last step you take before you actually fire. This conflict is literally inches away from becoming an open war.
So we've seen the tanks, we've seen the fighter jets. But what does this war actually look like for the people on the ground? Well, let's zoom in on a single city, a city that's now been split in two, to see the real human cost of all this.
This is the city of Rivera. It sits right on the border, and a massive security wall now cuts it clean in half. On the Brazilian side, life is pretty much normal. Water fountains are flowing, but just 30 feet away on the Uruguayan side, people are waiting in 4-hour lines just to get a 5-liter ration of water for their families.
I mean, seeing that kind of injustice day in and day out, it was bound to explode. And it has. The desperation has now boiled over into what they're calling water riots, and U.S. forces are really struggling to contain a population that is, quite understandably, just thirsty.
And this quote from a local student leader, wow, it just cuts right to the heart of the entire thing. It perfectly captures all the raw emotion and the deep sense of injustice fueling this entire conflict.
So all of this, the local resistance, the international pressure, the riots, it's all led to a really critical problem for the U.S. It's a strategic concept that analysts are starting to call a sovereignty deficit. And what that means is, even though America clearly has the military power to take the water, the cost of holding it is becoming unsustainable. The price of fighting off insurgents, facing down the Brazilian military, and suppressing riots, it's actually starting to outweigh the value of the water they're taking. It is a classic quagmire.
And that leaves us with the exact same question the intelligence briefing poses at the end. What happens next? Because this isn't some hypothetical war game anymore. This is the new reality of a world that's starting to fight over its most essential resource. The battle for blue gold has only just begun.